Hello, Christelle Robinson-Tiedemann here, aka Cree. I am a life coach and a certified human design analyst, and this is HD Thursday. This is a weekly live human design education session that is meant to be fun, interactive, give new perspective. And this was actually an aspect of my membership, my monthly membership, that I decided to bring live to allow for more people to engage. And this week, we're going to do things a little bit differently. I am in the beginning stages of HD Thursday. And so you guys are getting to watch me try all kinds of new things out about how I want to offer this. But it's truly coming from a place within me that is not just geared towards human design education. So I'm not a huge fan of the kind of rote learning process. That has never worked for me. I have ADHD. When I was growing up in school, the traditional school system, it didn't work for me because it didn't feel extremely life applicable. It didn't feel necessarily meaningful, and I had a hard time engaging. And so my passion is in my coaching and with the use of the tool of human design is all about how life applicable it is. It's all about how can this change your actual lived experience. Growth, I literally have the channel of growth inside the gate of growth in my human design chart. Growth is one of my greatest passions. So I don't want to just be another place that you learn about human design. I want it to make sense deeply. I want you to be able to walk away and actually consciously move through your life in a way that brings you closer to your own personal alignment. So, to help you to do that, I'm going to be trying different things, trying to explain things in a different way, trying to make it fun, trying to make it light, and add different segments that I think will enhance that process. So before we get started on today's topic, and we are in the middle of a series, we are on the back end of the series, actually. We're doing a Foundations of Type series, and this is number 3. We'll be talking about manifestors today. We are now getting into our more unicorn types. So these last two, manifestors and reflectors, they comprise of 10% of the population. So a much smaller percentage of people than the generators and the projectors. So we have one more in the series after this. We'll be talking about reflectors. But before we jump into it, if you want to pull up your chart, I think that is one of the best ways for you to be able to understand and really integrate what it is that I'm talking about. So if you go down to the description box in just below, scroll down to the description box, you're going to see a link to my favorite human design chart engine. Type in your birth information and you can pull up your birth chart. So you're going to need your birth date, your exact birth time, and the accuracy of that does matter, and your city and country. So enter that in, pull up your chart, grab yourself something to drink. I'm having wine tonight. Cheers. Grab yourself a fun cocktail or sparkling water or hot tea, whatever makes you feel good, and we will jump in. So as you're doing that, I am going to introduce a special segment that I'm going to call Self in Practice. So I want to share with you guys what my human design experiment is looking like this week. So as you come in, I would love it if you say hello, type your type into the chat, your profile, and where are you in your experiment? How long have you been dabbling in human design? Have you never heard of this before? Has it been 1 week? Have you had a reading? Have you never had a reading? Let me know where you are in your experiment and your type, your profile. It's really fun to know who it is that I'm speaking to here. And if you are watching this on the replay, feel free to put it into the comment section so that I can read it after. So For self and practice, what's been coming up for me in my own experiment? So I've been in my human design experiment for just over 5 years, and it is really a process. So I want this to be safe and light because it's not a matter of just you learn everything and then I'm in alignment. You have to experiment with it. You have to try things out. You have to make it your own. You have to figure yourself out. One really cool thing to understand, actually, if you want to check out last week's session, we talked about projectors. That's in there. Projectors. I'm a projector, a 4-6 projector, splenic projector, meaning that the way that I make decisions is through my intuition. And projectors, one of the aspects of being a projector is being able to see deeply into other people, right? Have a sense of knowingness and awareness. That's how we're able to guide other people. But our beautiful paradox is we have a tougher time seeing ourselves. Our existential question, the question that's always running inside of a projector is, who are you? And so our gaze is very much outward. Our aura projects outward. It literally penetrates other people in front of us. So we are our biggest blind spot. And so it is part of my process to be constantly learning myself through the reflection of others. And I am blown away more and more and more. Like when you think there's no more to learn, there's so much more to learn. Like the one thing, that saying that the only thing I know for sure is that I don't know anything. Yeah. Like this is very much part of the experiment. And that is a really good sign that you're in your experiment if you're really realizing like, I know a lot and I know nothing, So don't feel ashamed or afraid to get your feet dirty and your hands dirty and really get in there and try things out in your experiment. Even if it's doing the opposite of what you're supposed to do as your design, that will teach you something, So for this segment, self and practice, I want to share with you in the beginning of our lives, my own personal experience over the past week since I've seen you. And so what I've been experimenting with this week is how I'm carrying myself through a longer melancholic experience than I've ever been in before. So I moved homes a couple of weeks ago. Where are we? Oh my God. Almost 3 weeks now. We've been in a new place. And the process was actually quite disruptive for me. And what I expected was going to be a launch into a new creative spike burst, actually was into a pretty deep melancholic slump. And it's longer than I have experienced before. And so, of course, I have been HD diagnosing myself. And whenever you are experiencing melancholy, which is a feature of anyone with individual circuitry, which is pretty much all of us, and there is a call about, there is an HD Thursday about melancholy if you want to look for that past session as well. Really, really interesting session, which a lot of my clients thought was found very helpful and eye-opening because a lot of us have melancholic aspects to our design and we don't realize that that's just a part of our nature. And the thing with melancholy is that it's not just like sadness. It's not depression. It's a lull before a creative burst. It's a lull. I don't want to say burst. I'm talking about manifestors today, so that's where my mind is. It's a call for creative outlet. It's a call for creativity. It's the artist's circuit. So individual circuitry and mutation is all about like the artist energy. So an artist releases an album and then they go into the world and they live their life. And let's say they have a tumultuous relationship and a big breakup, and then next thing they have a great album, and all of that delicious juice in the album came from the breakup. So it's like, this is how our lives go. And those lulls are these opportunities for us to create. That's what it's calling for. And so being conscious and not allowing myself to create a story about the lull that I was experiencing, and having fear come up because I'm like, this doesn't usually last this long. What if something's wrong with me? Instead of going down that route, I started to ask myself, what is the creative output that I'm actually looking for? And this lull, this melancholy that I've been experiencing in the past little while, it had a stress flavor to it. It has a bit of a stressy flavor to it. And I think that's associated with like a move. There's lots to unpack. We have furniture to buy. I'm running a business. I have a job. Like, there's so many different moving parts. And I felt myself really being stressed, especially as a projector. And so, very fun, interesting fact. If you have a defined route, especially if you have any of the gates at the top of that root center defined, you do really, really well in vigorous physical activity. Like, you should definitely have some sort of movement and workout routine. And I don't mean like easy, like yoga. I mean like hits, like intense, high intensity work, like boxing, kickboxing, like that kind of stuff. Like, the root is a adrenalized movement, right? And it works in a pulse. So short, intense bursts of exercise. So I started bringing exercise back into my life, which had really, really fallen off. And that has been really helpful. And then two things were really awakening for me this week that really helped with my own experiment. And one was in a session with a client. And this is the cool thing about this work, about coaching work, is that yes, I am the coach. Yes, I am the guide, but I learned so much through the collaboration with my clients. It's a two-way street. Like, it is so expansive, these amazing individuals that I work with. And so one of my clients, we were talking about her creative experience, how she's going to implement more creativity in her life. And she said, you know what? I usually do the same kind of things. I also usually do the same kind of creative things. And she's like, I've been feeling like it needs to be something different, I usually have like movement as the things that I do for creativity, but I think I need to buy a coloring book. This is an adult. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a brilliant idea. So her plan that we'd set up for her integrative practice is that she was going to buy herself a coloring book, and she was going to enjoy sitting on the porch and coloring. And that just sparked something so beautiful inside of me. Something new, something different. And nothing came to me. I'm splenic. So the way that I know that my inspiration would come would just be in an intuitive hit. And nothing had come to me in the time, but I felt it. I felt something tingle in me when we talked about that. And then, of course, as always, later on in the week, yesterday, I was taking a course, and the course was about social media, and it was teaching us how to do carousels and stuff. And something that the coach said in the course, it just was like fireworks went off in my mind. I was like, oh my God. We were talking about B-rolls. We were talking about just grabbing random things from your phone, pictures from your phone. And I thought about these past 3 weeks that I've been in this lull, where I feel like I haven't been as active, where I feel like I have been that projector in her pajamas. And I thought of all of the pictures in my phone that literally beautifully represented projector resting. And I got this creative urge to make art out of social media posts. And I've never, ever been inclined to like do that, but to have fun creating. And I was like, ding, 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 ding. That's my little project, So I'm really excited to jump into that. But the really cool things that I thought would be fun to share from my own experiment to yours is about trying new things. Sometimes even if we are aware enough that we're creative beings and we need to do creative activities, sometimes you need to switch that up, and try something different. And so don't be afraid to trust that you can do new things and you can try new things, and to always stay grounded in our knowing of our alignment. So even though this melancholic phase has been longer than I'm used to, I know that the creativity that's going to come out of it is going to be something magnificent, because I completely trust in this process. So you guys should have your charts all ready to go. Do we have our charts in our cocktails? All right. We are talking about manifestors today. My beautiful manifestors. Oh, and let me mention this. We're going to do something a little different again at the end. So I'm going to share about the fundamentals of the manifestor. And then I'm going to do a little chart lens. And so we're going to pull up a manifestor chart, and I'm going to do like a little mini reading that I think will be a really fun demonstration of kind of like the things that you can see from someone's human design chart. So my manifestors, let's jump in. Only 9% of the population. So again, manifestors, reflectors, now we're getting into the last 10% of the population. Manifestors are 9%, and then next week we're going to cover our beautiful uniform reflectors, and they're only 1%, the most rare type. So manifestors are a pretty rare type, but when you think about how many people are on the planet, that's still a lot of people, but you are still a lot less likely, most likely, to have as many manifestors in your life that you've encountered than you would generators or projectors. And manifestors are really unique in how they are felt by the rest of the types, by other people. They feel mysterious to other types. And my aim for today, in everything that I'm sharing about manifestors and our fundamentals of manifestors, is to help others understand the manifestor, and to help manifestors understand why they feel so different and are received so differently by others. This is all about, like, what I want is for us to understand each other. Okay. So manifestors are the visionaries. So if you remember an analogy a metaphor that I told in their first Foundations of Type series call, I talked about a fire, like a bonfire, being a metaphor for all of the types. And in this fire analogy, manifestors are the spark. Manifestors are the visionaries that see the whole picture. Nothing begins without the manifestor. Manifestors are like the seed that is planted into the ground that becomes an entire maple tree. That little seed holds the entire vision of the tree inside of it. Are you understanding what I mean by visionary? And the thing is that others can't necessarily see that. When you look at a seed, it just looks like a little grain, like literally it's like a tiny little thing, and a whole fruit comes from that. A whole tree can come from that, right? That is the same way that other types, other people cannot see the manifestor's vision. It's like it's just like the seed. And so a big part of why manifestors are so misunderstood is that they're just we're unable to see what they can see. And so when the other types can't see what they can see, it doesn't seem to make sense. So a lot of times the manifestors feel entirely misunderstood, entirely misrepresented, but they are the visionaries. And their experience can be pretty polarizing. So it can be that people are almost kind of obsessed with them. They hold impact, they have a presence. And so people are kind of like in awe of them. I remember seeing a reel once about manifestors, and the woman was like literally acting out what it is. Half the time when she walks into the room, half of people respond to her like this. Like that's the awe. And then the other half are like, they're like afraid. So manifestors are received in a very polarized way. It's almost like people can be obsessed with them or they can be afraid of them and kind of untrusting. And this is all going to make more sense as we get into it. So what's the manifestor purpose? The manifestor is here to initiate and make impact. Initiation and impact. That is the manifestor's purpose. They are the white ball on the pool table. There is no game without the white ball. Nothing starting. The ball that goes into the pocket, that's not the white ball. In fact, you're not supposed to put the white ball in the pocket, correct? The ball that goes into the pocket are the other balls, right? So the manifestor starts, it hits the other ball, the ball goes into the pocket. That's like the generator. That's like the manifestor sparks, and then the generator is the fuel that continues the burn. So if you think about it, one of the archetypes for the manifestor is the disruptor. There's something disruptive about their nature, and then hence that way that they are experienced, right? Something that is impactful, something that initiates, also tends to disrupt. So another really helpful analogy is if you can think of a trail, think of, walking on a pathway, whether it's a forest or a marsh or a swamp or something. But if you think of a forest, let's say, and there's a trail for hikers to walk through, that trail came from repeated steps, right? And so eventually it becomes a paved pathway that is just there and it's present. But before that trail was there, somebody mashed leaves, brush out of the way, flowers potentially, pushed over, rocks and logs. The creation of the trail is disruptive. That is the manifestor. So if there might be a trail there, they are the ones who are going to start a trail somewhere else. And so as they're starting that trail, it's disruptive to the forest, to the area. Eventually, after the trail is kind of paved through and people start walking on it, it doesn't seem so disruptive. But in the beginning, that's exactly what that was. And so that's the impact that the manifestor is here to make. They are the pebble that's thrown into the pond. If you've ever done like skipping rocks, you throw a pebble into a pond, you see ripples, right? They're also the boulder that falls off of a cliff and into a pond and creates a massive disruption and maybe even a dam now and maybe even a second river. That's also an impact. Whether it's small or it's big, manifestors make an impact through their initiation. They are here to birth new things into the world. And if you think about it, how disruptive is birth for mom, for baby, for the family dynamic, right? It's a beautiful beginning. It's necessary and it's beautiful, and it's something that we, put on a pedestal in the way that it deserves, but there's a disruptive nature to birthing. Manifestors are here to birth new systems into the world. My human design teacher is a manifestor, and she birthed a new way of teaching human design through the power of metaphor, which is what I'm sharing with you now. This was something new. This was impactful. And she initiated this new way. She's hypnotherapist by trade. And in hypnotherapy, they work through metaphor. And she said, what if I put those two things together? And they're birthed human design certification program that teaches human design through metaphor. That didn't exist before. This is what the manifestor is here for. The manifestor is not happy if they are not creating impact. They are here to create impact, whether it's big or it's small. They're here to create movement and change. Move stagnation through. This is what the manifestor is for. So because of that, manifestors don't like being told what to do. A lot of people know that. All my manifestors know this. So if you don't know this for your manifestors in your life, do not tell your manifestors what to do. They do not like being told what to do. And if you understand everything that I just shared, you can understand why that is. Because unlike the other types, like nobody likes to be told what to do, right? Like I definitely don't like being told what to do. But it doesn't feel like it is taking away my literal purpose. Because when something initiates and when something is new and birthed into the world, it's not told how to do that, right? So the river didn't tell the rock to fall into it. The river responded, right? The river responded, generators. So they're not here to be told what to do. They're here to operate in their freedom to initiate and bring newness into the world. So how do these mechanics show up? If you pull up your body graph, and I'll depict this to you very clearly later, you're going to see that there's no defined sacral. Again, what's the only types that have a defined sacral? Generators and manifesting generators. So they have no defined sacral, but they have a motor connected to the throat. The throat is the action center. It is the manifestation center, a motor, energy. So think of that. Motorized energy into action. That is a manifestor. So the chart, which we will see later on, that has no defined sacral and a motor to the throat. This is a manifestor, okay? And their aura is what we call closed and repelling. And I know that word, repelling, is repelling. Like nobody likes that word, but there's mechanics to this. There's a reason for this. So everything that I'm sharing is building upon each other, right? So we understand that they're here to impact and initiate. We understand that they're here to birth new systems, new things into the world. We understand that the manifestor is not meant to be controlled and told what to do. It's like a direct line to source into creation. And so how they're able to do that is for their aura to actually be so dense that it doesn't absorb that of those around them. It protects them from their it protects their individuality. It protects their ability to be able to move barriers out of their way in order to initiate. So that the way that you can think about the closed manifestor aura is kind of like a wet sponge, a sponge that is so soaked full that it can't hold anything else. The water is literally leaking out of the sides. And so other people's energy, it can't disrupt their process. And so there is a pushing kind of energy about their aura that keeps them protected, that keeps the other out in order to not block their process. So there's no room for our other types energy in their aura, which allows others to get out of their way for their bursts of action. The intention, therefore, of the manifestor is what others can't see. And this is why they're received as like mysterious, like literally they feel dense. They feel like the way that my human design teacher describes it is they feel like a dark spot in the room. As someone who is extremely intuitive as a splenic being, it is a very stark awareness for me, the difference between a manifestor aura and a different aura. Because, and especially as a projector who's always penetrating into the aura, even projectors don't penetrate the same way into a manifestor. We can't. Projectors can't even read a manifestor the way that they can read a generator type and other projectors, because of the density of that aura. Why? Because they're really meant to do their own thing. And so the intention, because I don't realize how much I'm reading the direction of another person by, seeing into their G center. When a manifestor is there, it's like, oh my gosh, what are they thinking? What are they doing? If I'm being completely transparent in coaching calls, that is where I feel it the starkest. So with my friends, it doesn't feel, it's not something that I'm super consciously thinking about. It can be felt. But when I'm in a coaching call with a manifestor client, I realize how much I rely on my intuitive projector penetration, because I find parts of myself come up. And an aspect of being a coach is also you're managing yourself at the same time. That actually is most of the work, right? How can I be the most present with this client right now? And it's not about me. But with a manifestor client, more of those parts of me come up, that it's like, am I being helpful? What are they thinking? Because it's not something that I'm intuitively able to necessarily pick up on. And so when people are not aware of this, what they're interpreting is, I can't figure you out, bad. I can't figure you out, danger zone. You can't be trusted. But it's simply their aura. Manifestors are lovely human beings. It has nothing to do with the kind of person they are. It is simply the mechanics of their aura in order for them to initiate and make impact in this world, which we need. Nothing new in society would have been created without the manifestor. And interestingly enough, that same dense aura, it works in reverse in the same way for the manifestor. They also can't see out. They can't see your intention. The density of their aura makes them also unable to read the other. So it's a two-way kind of blinded street. And so a lot of times, and this is why I hold so much compassion for my manifestor clients, and I want all other types to understand this about the manifestors. The manifestors innately feel wrong and bad because of how others look at them in this mysterious, untrustworthy, dark spot kind of way. And we talked a lot about child wounding of the projector, and most definitely they are number one. There's also a really special type of wounding for the manifestor child where they are projected upon as being bad. I shouldn't probably use the word projection because they're misunderstood, because the adults around them don't realize why they feel so almost unsafe. Like, even for their own safety, like, what are you doing? You're going to get hurt. It's because they can't read the intention of the child. They can't predict the child's movement. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're planning. They don't know what they're up to. So it feels like, And so oftentimes, manifestor children grow up feeling wrong, bad, and they become big time people pleasers. So some of the biggest people pleasers that you'll see are the manifestors, who are actually here for the exact opposite. They are the type that is most here to do their own thing. There's always a paradox inside of the experience of all types. So the manifestor was given a strategy to help with this. And what is that? To inform. So the way that the manifestor can strategize through their life, navigating their life experience, is to learn to inform. Because though others can't read them, because their intentions are unknown, they inform, and this will relax the others in their vicinity. Now, as a stubborn individual, I know that that can sound like, well, why should I have to make everybody feel relaxed in my vicinity to do what I'm here to do? I get it. It's the same way that I felt like in the beginning of my experiment. Why doesn't anybody listen to me? I have all this great knowing. And part of my process of learning to wait for the invitation is to realize that that's not for me to decide. That's their right, you know? And it's the same way for the manifestor. It's understanding that this is not intentional. This is not that we need to adopt a certain amount of detachment and understanding that it's not personal, though it is definitely not an excuse for anyone to treat you badly. But it is true that they can't read you. It is true that they do not understand. It is true that there is an inability to read intention, which innately we are all pretty much doing it all the time. If you think of survival, our sixth senses, like we use our intangible senses all the time to navigate life, whether we're aware of it or not. So you can imagine that in front of a manifestor, some of those unknown intangible aspects of ourselves or alarms might be going off. And if people are not aware enough to understand that there are different auras for different people, then they might be jumping to conclusions about a person and completely misunderstand them. I will also say, my manifestors, if somebody is refusing to take the time to see you for who you are, then that's not the person for you anyways, you know? But this is the strategy. This is the strategy. And it works not just for relaxing other people in your vicinity for their sake, but the point is to allow for your process to happen as smoothly as possible. Because barriers, a manifestor likes to do what they want to do, quick lickety split. Like that motor to throat, that energy to action, it's a fast process. And so you don't want barriers in your way. And so if you're not informing the right people, barriers will arise, and then you will find yourself in your not self theme angry. And so informing, there are some nuances to this. Okay. And let me know any questions that are coming up as I'm going through this. So which one do I want to say first? I will say this. Permission is another form of informing, especially for children. So one of the ways that you want to teach your manifestor child to start informing is to ask for permission. Why? Because yes, they're not here to do what they're told. Yes, they're not here to do to follow others. They don't know what's safe. A child does not know what's safe for them. And in order to keep them safe, they need to inform you. So you want them to ask permission. You want to teach them to ask permission, but you also want to say yes as much as possible. As much as possible with your manifestor child, you want to say yes to them. And that will build trust and allow them to know that asking you, which is really informing you, is not a hindrance to getting what they want or doing what they want. So unless it is unsafe for them to do what they're asking or informing you for, help them to let them do it or help them to find a safe way to do it. So this will also include like teaching them lightness, teaching them politeness, lightness, politeness, like these kind of soft skills go a long way for the manifestor, and they're informing and moving people out of their way, getting people on board so that they can initiate what they're here to initiate. So it works both ways as well. The manifestor, because their aura also isn't able to read out, being informed is their love language. So you inform your manifestor to inform you, and you inform your manifestor, and your manifestor informs. This is the way that you best we're gonna get more into that in the communication section. So there are different types and levels of informing as well. Okay, so this is a big one for manifestors that I don't see often. I don't see talked about very often, but is very important to understand. There are a couple of nuances with the manifestor, the more mysterious type. There's a lot more unknowns about the manifestor type than other unknowns, as well as the reflector type. Why? Because there are less of them. And so there's little informing, like literally, I'm going to hey, honey, I'm going to the store. I'll be back in 20 minutes. I'll be back in 30 minutes. That's a little informing. And that goes a long way in your relationship. It does. And the same thing, vice versa. Their partner would need to do that with them. So that's little informing. Like I have 3 client calls today between this time. Please don't interrupt me. Because the other thing is, when a manifestor is doing their thing, they do not like to be interrupted, and not self-theme will come out of anger. So that's little informing. Okay. There's also big informing. This is the stuff where it's like, I have a massive project that I'm undertaking, that I'm about to embark upon, that is going to be disruptive, that like I'm birthing a big project, and my coach is, wow, that is not surprising. So I definitely am one of those like in awe of manifestors people. I love manifestors. And both of the I have 3 coaches actually. 2 out of 3 of my coaches are manifestors, and I don't think that's shocking. But whenever my coach has something that she's going to launch into the world, this big inform is a massive and important aspect of that process, or else she will find barriers and blocks in her way. And so this big inform, this is the stuff like a client example is someone who works in healthcare, and actually in her field, she was changing the entire way that they treated she works in the NICU. Doing what she does, there was a new way that research has proven to do what they do with NICU children. And she went to a new hospital, and they were all old school, and she was coming to implement, I want to create this new thing. And the barriers, the blocks, the hate, the animosity that she received to implement something that truly is like phenomenal was incredible. And she was like, what the actual heck? Like, I'm literally here to help. Manifestor, right? It's like, what are you doing? You're coming in here. They were even accusing her of like, you just want to take our jobs away. You just want to make us obsolete. And that was not the case at all. But this is the way that people received her. I don't know you. Who are you? You feel untrustworthy. What the heck? You want to change things? And as someone who works in the medical system, like, yeah, change is tough. So especially this manifestor coming and disrupting their whole system, it was not received well. And so this is where the big informing comes in. And a very powerful aspect of this informing is knowing who to inform, who's going to assist you in what you're doing. And then also knowing who not to inform, who will go out of their way to get in your way. A metaphor that I think depicts this really beautifully is going back to that seed. So if this tree is being planted in I don't know, I'm in the middle of an unknown place, and the right people are informed, you know, it gets watered, it gets shade, nothing else is put around it, blah, blah, blah. This seed is given a chance to grow. The wrong people are informed, they might literally dig up that seed and it gets no chance. But if that seed is allowed to be planted, have its process and grow into like, you know, a spruceling, then it's already started, it's already begun, it can't really be ripped up. So if you can think about that analogy, that metaphor in a system, it's the same way, like informing the right people and not informing the right people is a part of the manifestor process in order to protect their creation. Okay. So this is something that I work on a lot with clients privately, is really figuring out what is the right way for me to inform? Who are the right people for me to inform? And honestly, for certain things, it's often not a lot of people, and you don't need a lot of people. That's how powerful the manifestor is. You need the right people who are going to assist you with what it is that you're doing. And then others can be informed after they see what's already been started. So you're informing who's going to help you, and you're not informing those who are going to get out of the way. Basically, anyone who's going to tell you it's a terrible idea, try to deter you, tell you it's stupid, well, did you think about this problem? And did you think about this problem? And what about this problem? And did you think about that problem? That is not it for the manifestor. That's literally like telling them what to do. Remember, manifestors do not like to be told what to do. They're not here to be told what to do. They're here to initiate and make impact. And so inform those who are going to assist you on your path. Do not inform those who are not, and allow for your creative process. Of course, follow your strategy and authority. So this doesn't mean that manifestors are here to do things alone. Not at all. Not at all. The not self manifestor is the one who's like the Lone Ranger, who's like, I can't trust anyone because they have been told what to do. They've been controlled. They've been battered down. They've been misunderstood. But the true self manifestor knows the right people to tell and the right people to jump on board with the project. Because the truth is, the manifestor it's not necessarily here to see the whole thing through. It's here to spark it, like in that metaphor, the fire metaphor. It's the spark. The generator is the fuel that, you know, creates the huge flame. So it's here for the initiation and that great impact, and then bring in the right people to continue the project and see it through. A lot of manifestors who don't understand their design and who are homogenized and conditioned by our society, because we are all conditioned, we're all told that we're supposed to be the same way. And one of those things we love to tell people is about consistency, and you have to stick with it, and you have to do the same thing, and you have to see it through to the end. And like, this is very generator language. This is not necessarily manifestor language. They're not necessarily here to see the project through to the end, but they're here to see the project off its feet. They're here to see their vision launched, and then allow others with that sustainable energy to come in and build. What are generators here to do? Build. And right now we're building on our series. First session, generators are here to build. The manifestor sees the vision, initiates, gets it rolling. The generator comes in and builds. The projector guides the generator in seeing through that vision that the manifestor created. Are we seeing how these all go together? Okay. So this is the power of informing. The manifestor is here for action, and they take that action quickly, effectively, and efficiently. And so all barriers need to be moved out of the way. How is that going to happen? Through the right informing, following your strategy and authority. Let me know that this is making sense. Let me know if you have any questions coming up. And I hope that you're all feeling a lot more understanding towards manifestors. I hope that you're feeling a lot more understanding for yourself. All right. Now, if barriers come into the way of the manifestor, if the manifestor is naysayed with their vision, that they know, it's like they literally have a heart, like it's hard to even continue in your body, the knowingness of this, the power of this vision, and there are barriers, what's going to happen? Well, they're going to feel angry. That is the not self theme of the manifestor, anger. And there are two types of anger. And this is another important thing that I did not encounter a lot of information about before I was certified. This is, I think there's some misinformation about this for the manifestors. There are two types of anger. There's the mechanical anger, which is the functional, effective, and quick, like bark, the get out of the way, right? Just to remove the barrier that's in front of them, right? The same way like a dog for the cubs, they would just like, they snip at the cub when they're doing something wrong, just like a quick snip, and then it's it, and it just cuts it. It's like that. There's that mechanical anger, which is like, do not interrupt me. And that is in alignment for the manifestor. Their process is not meant to be interrupted. Yes, it might be uncomfortable to the other, but it is an effective process, and it is a mechanical response because they are not here to be deterred from their path. And then there is, and that's for the manifestor in alignment, because a lot of manifestors who are not their true self will allow themselves to be deterred from the path. But it is not in all of our best interest for the vision to not be complete, the vision to not come to fruition. Okay? And then there is not self anger. And this is a more chronic experience. And when I say that, what I mean is that that kind of anger, that destructive anger, it doesn't actually begin as anger. It doesn't begin as the nip. It begins as agitation. It begins as you didn't inform. It begins as you allowed the naysayers to come in and you questioned yourself. It began as you made yourself small and now you're feeling trapped in. And then it builds, that frustration, that agitation grows into annoyance, and that annoyance grows into like ickiness and snappiness, and then it's like bruh. And that is the not self anger. And when it's the not self anger, it's because did you inform? Did you inform the wrong people? These are the not self questions to ask. Okay? Now, the signature, the true self theme of the manifestor is peace. It's peace. And this is the true nature of the manifestor. It's this very peaceful, calm being. And the manifestor energy in general, if you're picking up on this pattern throughout everything that we've talked about tonight, there's this push-pull. There's this burst of energy, and then there's a lull. The manifestor does not have a defined sacral. It is a burst and spike of energy into the world, followed by a lull. And then in that rest period, what they're doing is building up their energy, 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 creative burst. And then it's done. And then there's rest to build up their energy, build up their energy, creative burst. And that process, that creative cycle process, is unique to each manifestor. And it's unique to the type of creative cycle. You know, some creative cycles are days, some are hours, some are a month, and the rest can be corresponding, short, small, you know? So that signature of peace is this complete other end of the spectrum to the anger. And that store up of energy to burst out, like you can see this lull kind of nature in the manifestor, right? And it's the same thing with this anger and the peace. And the peace can look really different depending on what part of the cycle the manifestor is in. So peace could be sitting at a calm, cool lake, reading a book, just looking out at the water. That can be peace, like super zen, quiet. You know, a lot of manifestors love quiet and nature and space. And then if the manifestor is in a creative cycle, that peace could be nonstop doing. It could be going. It could be the mad scientist in their lab working away at their creation. But that feels like peace to them. So it varies depending on what part of the cycle is, but it is like on an absolute rightness within the self. It's not buzzy like that of the generator satisfaction. It's not like in relation to energy, like I've built this, I've completed this. It's not that. It's almost like the check mark, the knowing that the thing has been birthed. You know, the thing that I meant to create has been visioned, has been released, and a peace in that knowingness of that rightness. And that can, again, be on either in the creative aspect of it, or I think that's a helicopter. Wow, there's a helicopter going by, guys. Whoa! I don't know if you can hear that. It's incredibly loud. Like, it's actually shaking the floor. Whoa. I'm sorry if that's really, really loud, guys. I don't know what's going on. Something must be going on. So that is the not self theme and the true self theme of the manifestor. Not self theme is anger, and there's two kinds, and the true self theme is peace. Peace. Really calm, like beautiful feeling. And this is like what I actually think is the real true nature of the manifestor. This is the space that is their truest self. And that's why I love the term true self theme. I swear it feels like they're right outside my window. So the communication with the manifestor, we already mentioned, do not tell them what to do. Do not tell your manifestors what to do. You inform them, they inform you. You inform them to inform you, they inform you. This is me speaking to my non-manifestors. Manifestors inform. And every single manifestor I've ever worked with says it is not natural to them informing. So it's something that you need to learn. And so this is why when we went back to speaking about raising manifestor children, it's really important to start having them do this from very, very young. And what that looks like for a manifestor child is actually asking permission. But on the other end of it is it's not just the asking permission, it's the teaching them to ask permission while being sure that you are doing everything in your power to always say yes, as long as it is truly unsafe. Allowing them, teaching them to find a way to safely navigate the world freely while informing you. And so that asking permission, teaching them manners, it might sound redundant from the don't tell them what to do, but that manifestor child is more likely to grow up and have a natural relationship with informing. Why does informing feel so unnatural? Because think about it. Like we said, this is the manifestation center. This is the action center. They work in bursts. They work in creative impulses. So it's like you have the impulse, you want nothing in your way, you just want to go. The last thing that you want to do is be like, who do I want to inform? But it is an absolutely necessary process in order to create a smoother ride and in order to not end up in your not self theme of anger, right? Or there is the functional aspect of anger where you're moving people out of your way. But how can you avoid having to do that? Because that does put a strain on relationship, inform. This is the manifestor, like I said, peace is their nature. This is how you preserve peace. Inform. And in order to not take away the purpose of the manifestors in your life, my other types, inform them to inform you. Because you telling them what to do, you bossing them around is really not building trust back and forth. They're not going to want to inform you. They're not going to want to bring you in when they feel like you're trying to control them. So we want our manifestors to be free to spark all these new things in the world that we get to guide and continue. So that is the meat and potatoes of the fundamentals of the manifestor. And to tie this out, we are gonna look at we're gonna do something called chart lens. And we are gonna look at a manifestor chart. And because I thought it would be really fun, we are gonna look at the chart of a manifestor child that I know. You guys can see this because I can't see you. I'm actually going to make it smaller. Sorry, I'm drawing all over the place. Give me a minute. Take a sip of your drink. All right. Okay. All right. This is a manifestor chart. And let me see if I can potentially zoom in a little bit. Oops. How's that? Look at me, tech savvy. All right, this is the manifestor. This is a 2-year-old splenic manifestor chart. And this little guy, as we can see, is a 3-5 profile. All right. So splenic manifestor, we can see that his spleen here is defined and no defined sacral. Remember what we said? No defined sacral with a motor. That's a motor, the root center connected to the throat. Guess what? He has 2 motors connected to the throat. This is a powerful little manifestor, okay? And he's quite defined. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 9 centers are defined. So we are looking at a 3-5 splenic manifestor. So when I say splenic, that means that the way that he's meant to make decisions is through these intuitive bursts, these intuitive hits. So already knowing that he's a manifestor, and so there's going to be these bursts of impulse, he's also splenic. So there is, and then on top of that, that closed and repelling aura. So you can imagine that there is a kind of unknown feeling around him because we don't know necessarily what his intentions or what he's thinking. And he's going to be quite impulsive. He's going to be quite impulsive. And so the manifestor piece is really, really important so that we understand here that he's here to initiate, right? And he's here to act and he's here to move things and spark change. So how this is going to show up as a child. Okay, sorry. Let me just put this here. All right. So what's going to be really important for his parents to know is that he needs a lot of space. He needs space. He needs the space and freedom to do his own thing. He does not need constant stimulation, and that same kind of like one-on-one intention in the same way that a projector child does. He actually needs space and freedom and actually some like solitude. Obviously, you need supervision for a little child, but he needs space to be able to freely have his manifestor energy express itself in its natural nature. And so that's how he actually gets peace, to be left alone to be himself and move through the world in his own terms. And so because he's a third line, and the third line is all about trial and error, right? It's all about experimentation. He's going to bump into things. He's going to knock things over. He's literally going to break things sometimes. Like literally, there's that impulsive aspect. So it is so helpful for parents to know, don't make him so wrong for that. Instead, maybe don't have a lot of breakable shit in the way. You know what I mean? Like this could be such a small thing that can make such a difference in a child's experience. I can tell you, as a child with ADHD, the tiniest things that over and over repeatedly being told I was wrong made me really experience myself as bad. Oops, I lost it. Okay, here we go. So that little thing, removing barriers for him could make such a huge difference. That third line is about experimentation. And so I'll allow him that freedom. Don't have unnecessary things because, he might literally break things. All right. The fifth line here, this is a person who's here to solve problems, and he solves those problems for others. And because he's a child, he's also 2 years old. So there's language as a bit of a barrier, but he won't necessarily broadcast that. He will do it quietly and in his own way. And people will actually notice later, like parents might notice later, teachers might notice later, how he solved something for them and they didn't even realize was broken. And so as a splenic manifestor child, especially at this ripe, beautiful young age to really set him up to be in his design, you want to enhance his natural intuition. So his parents' job are not to protect him from his own knowing, not just because he is a manifestor and they're here to follow their own natural urges to initiate and impact the world, but because he's going to do that in a splenic and intuitive nature. So their job is to teach him to trust himself, to teach him to trust it. And in a way, we can all learn from that, right? I know as a splenic child too, I really would have done well to have been encouraged more and given more the right kind of push or structure in order to follow my intuition more from a young age. So when he hesitates about something, his parents will want to kind of encourage his caution, like, oh, what is he onto? What is he really feeling about that? And when he moves towards something, as much as possible, let him. So really encourage his natural intuition. And over here, so we can see that he's got quite a few channels. So channels I call life force energy. Why is my highlighter thing not working? So, okay. So look how many channels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I literally have 2 channels in my chart. I have multiple people in my life with 1 channel in their chart. So he's got quite a few channels. And interestingly enough, just by looking at where these channels are located, I'm not going to go into the specifics of these gates and channels. That would take far too long. But just by looking at where they're located, the circuit that they're in, this is a very logical, detail work, mastery kid. Like this is all about discernment. His personality is all about logic, detail work, mastery, discernment, materialism. Like these are the themes of what is going to be a part of who his true life force is. So he's going to question things. And that's something that you naturally want to encourage in him. He's going to want to understand how things work. The way that his manifestor energy the impact and initiation he's most likely going to bring into this world is about, and we'll just focus right here on this. I can't even make a circle. This is his, what we call the conscious sun gate. This is the most important gate inside of his human design chart that represents his personality. And that gate is the gate of correction, and it's in line 3, which is the perfecting line. So he is going to very much initiate and create impact around fixing things, making them work, adjusting what's broken. I remember what we said, that can be quite disruptive. So if we don't have a knowing that this is part of his process, if those around him that love him don't understand that this is part of his process, how easily could they shut him down when he's questioning things? He's trying to understand how things work when he might be taking things apart. So don't shut that down in him. You want to let him explore. You want to let him take things apart mentally and physically. Like, this is probably a great kid to, give Lego to, but really allow to understand how things work. Maybe talk about how, like, the light switch work. This is where, I don't know how electricity works, but let's say that you did know, his parents didn't know how electricity worked. They could describe that as they're turning on the lights and stuff like that, So really feeding into that energy. He has this gate here. This one gate here I'll talk about too. Gate 60 in the bottom, that's coming from his defined root. That's going to have a special flavor on this guy, okay? This is actually something that I come across a lot in clients. I don't know why, but I attract a lot of people with gate 60 in their root, whether defined or not. And that is a very mutative energy, but all individual energy is mutative, but it's coming from this pulsing energy of the root. The root is adrenalized force. And so that pulsing on and off, this is going to be his way. So this naturally impulsive nature, this corrective nature, this detail-oriented nature, this curious nature of this child trying to figure things out, it's going to be in moments extremely intense and focused. And then at other moments, it's going to seem like he's completely uninterested. And in our society, in our homogenization, we might call that inconsistency. But he's not inconsistent. That's literally what gate 60 does. It pulses in this way. Okay? With his defined root, he's naturally more able to deal with stress. So we just want to allow that to be his process. And so what's really going to matter the most for his parents and his teachers and the people that love this 3-5 splenic manifestor, this 2-year-old splenic manifestor, is to respect his space, to honor his intelligence even at that age. That people with this gate, my father has this. This channel. My father has this channel. Brilliant individuals. I mean, genius level stuff. Okay. So honor his intelligence even at 2, and don't force him into activities and social situations just because he's supposed to be socialized. Like, really trusting and allowing him to follow his intuition. A manifestor child, they really thrive in integrity, in being allowed solitude and in freedom. And so you want to give him that so that he can flourish. Pushing him, controlling him, making him perform for others. These are all those things that lead to those manifestors that grow up into people pleasers. And it'll create an unnecessary conflict that doesn't have to exist. And so what else do we want to say about this beautiful chart? I want to say this. This is what we'll end on. This child, I'm going to try to zoom in. I can zoom in. I'm going to try to zoom in. Okay, can you see how the sacral center is completely open? There's no, oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to use this mouse because that's not working. You see how there's no gates on the sacral center? That's what we call a completely open center. So there's literally, even though, yes, any center that is open, oh my gosh. All right, I can't seem to zoom back out. Oh, there we go. Any center that is open, you absorb and amplify the energy of the defined centers around you. So someone else with a defined, so if let's say mom or dad has a defined emotional center, he'll have access to gate 22 at that time. But if he's not in their presence, he doesn't have access to that. But when you have an entirely open sacral center, that person literally becomes the energy. They completely take on the energy of the other sacrals in front of them. There's no filter to even process that inconsistent energy. And so what this means for this manifestor child with an open sacral is that he literally will not know when enough is enough. He will not know when to stop. And remember, we already said he's going to be naturally impulsive. And so he could easily burn himself out if he's left to his own impulses without external structure. And this is going to sound like a paradox, but it's not. So what we have here is this kid who's designed to move and act, but with no motor. Like no generated energy. He has a motor. He has multiple motors, 1 and 2 defined. 1 defined here, but these are not motors that are consistently going. The generator's consistently going. Both of those have their own burst. This is a pulse, and this is like a sprint and then a rest, a sprint and a rest. And so he's designed to be this powerful manifestor, moving and acting, but without a consistent energy force, right? And so that seems like almost a contradiction in his chart. So the real work for his parents is not in controlling him, but in creating boundaries and a rhythm around his action. So they want to encourage the action, but they want to help him to learn to naturally incorporate rest. And so how would they actually do that in practical terms? What will that look like? That's going to look like set eat times, set sleep at set times. This is when basically what you're teaching, like for later on, this is when work begins. This is when rest begins. Without those external containers, the open sacral will just keep pushing and then he'll crash, and what that will probably look like for a manifestor child is one hell of a tantrum. Remember, anger, not self-theme. Anger, he gonna have tantrums. And he'll also be extremely peaceful. Like there's both of these aspects are going to be seen. So how can they help to facilitate his peace is by allowing him freedom within a structure. So this could be like he eats at 6:00. Okay. And how he eats or where he eats, maybe he gets to choose that. He sleeps at 8, but how that process of getting to sleep, maybe that can be his own process. I hear my dog outside the door. So these boundaries will really hold the space and then don't control what happens inside of that space. This is how mom and dad could be really, really helpful for him. And the other piece, of course, is informing. So informing, teaching him to inform, teaching him to ask for permission. And you can teach him to inform and ask for permission. I think that it's safest for a child, especially a child with this amount of impulse and energy, is to teach him to, like, if he wants to climb onto the couch, let him, ask, can I climb on the couch? Or say like, Mom, I'm going to climb on the couch. Like, obviously he doesn't have like that much, might not have that much language yet, but to teach him to tell you, even if it's pointing in those ways, and practice saying yes. And when he asks for something, yes, yes, yes. And if it's not safe, showing him the safe way to do it, like when he's older, this might look like he wants something off of the top shelf, and he asks, can I, get the game off the top shelf? And it's like, yes, you can, but let me show you how to do that safely. And we bring the step ladder over, and this is how we safely climb the ladder, and we reach up here. Thank you so much for informing me. Okay. So this is how the structure that they give him, and the practice that they give him, the demonstration that they give him, will really allow him to protect his energy and allow him the freedom to know that he can be himself. And so the structure is going to protect his energy, his literal energy, and the informing is going to protect his peace. So this is this little guy. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. So I hope that really helped to kind of like solidify the things that we can see inside of this and bring this whole picture together with this real life example of this manifestor chart. If you guys have any questions that come up in post, feel free to put them into the comment section. If you have topics that you would like to cover, put that into the comment section. Also, I'm really curious about that. Let me know if this made sense. Let me know if there's aspects that didn't make sense. And if you like this process, if you also like the idea of bringing your human design, the system and your own design into your real life, how to actually make a difference in your life, and you're really interested in walking in alignment and consciously bringing this into the forefront of your life, but in a space where you can do it with others, where you can learn from others, where you can share, where you can be open, where you can come when things fall off, when you can say how you feel and receive support, and also support other people, and really grow in your experiment and in your individuation and becoming yourself, then you may really enjoy the Collective Perspective membership. And detail for that and all my other services are in the description box. Sending so much love to my manifestors. Thank you for your impact. Thank you for your initiation. The founder of Human Design, shocker, manifestor. Of course he is. So much love to the manifestors in your life. Non-manifestors, do not tell them what to do. Do not tell them. Learn how to communicate with your manifestors. Open, trust, learn to let them be free in their process so that you can allow their initiations. Even if you don't fully see their vision, trust that they do and support them, because it benefits us all. And next week, we will close out the Foundation of Type series as we talk about the reflectors, our true unicorn type. I hope to see you there for that. I love you. Have a wonderful Thursday night and a beautiful rest of your week. Until next time.